Give yourself the chance to lift. Preface. This is my third attempt at writing down the reflections that my 3 months in Taiwan brought me. I want to document them properly. Perhaps it's because I had too much caffeine today, at an hour where I should be asleep. My mind is unusually clear, so I might as well write something. It has been 3 weeks since I returned, and my mood and thoughts had become relatively more stable. Many things seem to have revealed themselves only after I came back. I noticed that my reactions toward things I used to care a lot about are now much calmer. Has my heart grown wider? Is it that my heart's capacity or space have expanded? Or that the clutter inside has been cleared, making it feel more spacious? Either way, it feels like something worth being happy about myself. Being happy about for myself. Though there are still ups and downs from time to time, after all, I'm a human. The amplitude of those waves seems gentler now. After returning to my everyday life in Malaysia, I've continued to live well, eating well, sleeping well. At the same time, I keep reminding myself to properly record how I felt living in Taiwan, in case those memories slowly fade. I've actually been thinking all along about how to write about those 3 months. That hesitation is part of why I couldn't bring myself to write. But I also know that if I don't start writing, I'll never know how to write it. So I'll just write now while I can't fall asleep. I'm starting to feel like I'm writing a book centered on my own story. I've already begun naming different sections. If I keep writing a bit more, they might even turn into chapters. Publishing a book has been one of my childhood dreams. A dream that once felt completely out of reach, but now it feels a little closer, even if I'm not sure when it will be completed. So all I can do is keep writing. After coming back, perhaps I needed some time to settle before I could sort out my thoughts. After I returned and caught up with some friends, I noticed that I had very direct reactions, or that our conversations once drifted toward the parts of Taiwan that left a deep impression on me. I shared those moments with them. Another part of the sharing happened through the postcards I brought back as souvenirs. I selected 12 photos from the film camera shots I took in Taiwan and made them into postcards for my friends. Once I let them choose which one they wanted, I shared the stories behind the photos and the little incidents that happened along the way. I love watching their reactions as they listen to the stories and pick their postcards. And hearing why they chose certain images, seeing the joy and appreciations on their faces, each moment encouraged me. Genuine expressions and body language can be felt. Maybe I really do enjoy observing people. I find all these little things fascinating. This is also something I want to continue doing next, in my own way. Before departure and the first month in Taiwan. Looking back now on those 3 months in Taiwan, I feel grateful to myself. From where I stand now, I'll pat my past self on the shoulder and tell her that we made it through together. You know that even when you felt broken and worn down, you were still surrounded by friends and family who loved you, supporting you in their own ways, giving you space and time. That was love and light, and its energy can transcend fear, even when fear is still there. 2 weeks before I left, my schedule was packed with gatherings with friends, farewells and catch-ups. At that time, my mind couldn't quiet down. it kept spinning, constantly responding, constantly talking. Yet all I wanted was to stay present with my friends. I think part of me was telling myself that inner conversations could wait until I arrived in Taiwan, where I could do it at my own pace. And indeed, those 3 months was a rest for me. A conversations with myself, not that I was talking to myself non-stop for 3 months. Most of the time, I was simply spacing out, just feeling whatever I was feeling, and I think that's how insight arose. Before leaving, I had certain imaginings and expectations about those 3 months, while also keeping an open heart for whatever might happen. But there was still a degree of attachment and impatience. Even though I told myself those 3 months were for rest, I was still expecting to see some changes in myself. Yes, I was consciously expecting transformations, and so I became impatient to witness it. I remember that during the first 2 weeks after arriving, I said yes to every invitations, approaching everything with openness and curiosity. Although I'm quite flexible as a person, I do have my own opinions. Over time, after trying things out, it became very clear to me what I wanted to do and what I didn't. On my 3rd day there, it was a Saturday, my sister took me to a cafe that was in the midst of transitioning and not yet open to the public. I loved the atmosphere of that cafe. Spending a few hours there injected some strength into my slightly lost state at that time. She introduced me to the people running the place, and we chatted a little. I briefly shared why I had come to Taiwan and what I planned to do there. As Taiwanese people often do, they warmly recommended places I could visit. There are many people in Taiwan who are truly trying to live their lives, she said. Hearing that, I silently but deeply agreed. And at that moment, I thought to myself, I must go and meet those people who are earnestly living their lives. The initial attempts weren't only about trying out things my family there wanted me to see or experience. It was also about adjusting the life to life itself. Life there was a completely 180-degree shift from my previous rhythm. Inside and out, big and small, everything you can imagine was different. So at first, it wasn't very comfortable, and that was normal. I kept adjusting and adapting. Until the mix of expectations and impatience, and while adapting to life in Taiwan, I felt that during my first 2 weeks, I was truly trying to live well. Yet I saw no changes. Those days I was restless. I often felt like I couldn't feel myself. About a week into actually living there, I realized that my imagined versions of those 3 months couldn't be realized. And the gap between the expectations and reality frustrated me. I felt that things shouldn't be like this or that. I began to miss my life and friends in Malaysia. At the same time, I habitually reached outward, throwing my emotions toward my friends back home and hoping they could hold me. Embrace the change, a close friend said to me. Those sentences burst my bubble. It took some time for me to land back on the ground. When the bubble burst, the remaining liquid either evaporated into the air or, if heavy enough, fell to the ground. The time between those processes was probably the time it took for me to come back from floating to reality. From then on, I simply focused on taking care of myself. On weekdays, I walked to help my family with some work. On weekends, if I felt like going out, I went out. When I stayed home, I read. When I got tired, I slept. All that time, I even spent much less time on social media. Probably no more than 2 hours a day, which was far less than before, though sometimes it still went over 2 hours. After another week or so of living like this, One day while I was reading, I felt my feelings returned. I could feel myself again. In that moment, I realized that my earlier inability to feel myself was because I had forgotten to give myself and my body time to adapt. Earlier, I mentioned that I consciously expected change in myself, but I hadn't noticed the impatience hidden within. A quiet, well-concealed impatience. I often tell my friends, take it slowly. Yet I forgot to say that very phrase, now almost a mantra to me, to myself. Time is truly fascinating. It seems that when energy accumulates to a certain point, it naturally begins to flow. Perhaps the book I was reading at the time helped too. It's a book I really loved, and I'll share it another time. Either way, being able to feel my own feelings again was incredibly important and beautiful to me. And I realized that it was the power of stillness that allowed this energy to circulate within me. After that emotional outpouring, I became more quieter. Not that I spoke less, but my inner world grew quieter. I say inner because I can't quite tell whether it was my heart that quiet now or my mind. It doesn't really matter. With that quietness came a sense of true rest physically, mentally, and spiritually. From there, I could calmly converse with myself, repeatedly answering my own questions, then asking new questions. When I wanted to record something, I wrote it down. When I wanted to share with my friends on social media, I shared. That too was a form of self-recording. In short, I followed my feelings. The process was comfortable, free, and healing. Though there were struggles and hardness at the beginning, it really is that idea of no rainbow without rain. The second month, August. The story moves into August, my second month in Taiwan. It was a month I both looked forward to and felt slightly nervous about, though the further along I went, the more I anticipated the journey. The reason was that before going to Taiwan, I had signed up for a 2-day course held on 2 consecutive Sundays. This course influenced me deeply. It was simple and unadorned, yet very grounded. The turning point was an exercise that teacher asked us to do to have conversations with ourselves, using writing to organize our thoughts and states. At the end of the first day, the teacher asked each of us to draw a card and take it home, to observe what feelings it brought up, and to interpret its meaning in relation to our own state. The card I drew on the first day read, "Have a relationship with yourself that will never break up. Focus on feeling everything about yourself, embrace it, and go on a date with yourself." My reaction was, fall in love with myself? Isn't that exactly what I'm doing right now? Those 3 months truly were a romantic date with myself. On the second day, the card I drew read, "Persuade your darker tendency and try to reconcile with them. The more trouble you are with them, the more trouble you are by them, the more courage you must gather to reconcile with them." After spending some time reflecting on what these messages meant for me, I felt deeply moved, almost stirred. The reason was that the cards helped me see my blind spots, even my missteps. Seeing them led me into 1 or 2 weeks of repeated reflections and inward digging, with intense emotional fluctuations and profound self-awareness. I was a very emotional kid growing up. Only later did I realize that as a child, I had so many emotions that I didn't know how to handle them. I could only cry or stay silent. Tears have been a very good friend a very good friend to me, accompanying me throughout my growth. But in recent years, as my life has shifted, the way I view this friend has changed too. In the past, tears were perhaps my shadow. Now they are my blessing. They have witnessed my transformations and watched me become more stable and more at peace. The stillness cultivated through practice, repeated self-conversations, and deeply bodily sensations allowed me to see how, beneath my excessive giving, what I thought was care for others, I was actually so frantic, so lacking, so insecure. But darling, you know how worthy of love you are. This capacity inherent in the human soul, you are love itself. You don't need to do more. You don't need to try so hard. In her book, published this year, which is 2025, Stand By Yourself, Bowie Zhang begins with an exercise. Be with love, not with fear. On the surface, it's such a simple sentence, yet it carries immense power. Ever since I read that book, this line has gently reminded me like an anchor, especially when feelings of unease arise. Yes, I don't need to worry that my friends' lives continue without me during those 3 months and that our relationship would grow distant. Friends who know my nature, especially those who have seen my vulnerability, my brokenness, and still chose to stay by my side, offering support and love, are not relationships I need to cling to so tightly. I remember that these reflections arose after my second class while I was eating cold noodles at a small stall by the Taipei intersections, feeling the atmosphere of the city wash over me. After that week, my world felt so much wider, so much freer. And toward myself, I felt immense gratitude. Letting go of expectations that were never mine, staying well with myself, focusing on myself, my heart slowly began to fill itself. And the truth is, we already have answers to the questions and doubts we hold about ourselves. We always have. As long as you are willing to quiet down and listen to the voice within your heart. To be continued in part 2.